Yeah.
Oh, hell, Meg.
You go sit up there.
And we're live with the
And we're live! It's Meg Riley trying to figure out new technology. We're at 24 Farnsworth Street in Boston at the new UUA headquarters, where it's too fancy for the likes of me. Hi out there, it's me.
Meg, are you in a police holding cell there? Is there a holding cell at 24 Farnsworth Street?
Good looking. So I'm really excited that we have with us for the first time Aisha Hauser. Welcome, Aisha.
Hi, Meg.
You're hoping not to humiliate yourself. Your family's hoping that.
Yeah, my family has charged me with trying not to embarrass the family on YouTube. So I'll do the best I can. We'll see.
You're in the wrong place for that. Why should you be different from the rest of us? Introduce yourself. You're our new host here. Share where you are and.
Well, right now I am in Bellevue, Washington. I actually live in Seattle, and it is about 8 a.m. It's super early here on the West Coast. I serve as the Director of Religious Education, and I've been here for a year. Before that, I was in South America for 2 years, and before that at the UUA, and I served 2 other congregations. So I've been a religious educator for 10 years, and I'm married and have 2 children. And have 2 dogs, which is why I'm at the library at church, because otherwise you would never hear me in my super loud house.
Well, we're so excited you're here. Aisha said, yeah, you know, there really should be a religious educator on The VUU. And I said, okay, join us. So fabulous that you're here today.
Yay!
Other hosts, want to introduce yourselves and say where you are?
Hi, I'm Joanna Fontaine Crawford, and I am here in sunny and going to be hot Austin, Texas.
And it's a beautiful day here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm Tom Shade, hanging out.
And I'm Shauna Foster here in Colorado, and I have some that I'm adding to a bucket because my friend who has ALS challenged me to do this bucket challenge thing. So here's the deal. I challenge every single person on The VUU. You have 24 hours to post a picture of yourself dumping an ice bucket over your head, or you give $100 to the ALS Foundation to be able to cure Lou Gehrig's. Because I'm only going to give $10 because I'm doing the bucket. Ready?
All right.
Okay, so you guys, you have 24 hours to do the challenge. Oh my gosh, I want all these videos of you doing it, or $100 to the ALS to end Lou Gehrig's disease. Yay, I did it. It's really cold. Oh, it's horrible.
I'll be writing my check tomorrow. Do they take PayPal?
Okay. Hey, hey, gang, it's me, Hank Person. I'm the new interim pastor in Milton, Massachusetts, and I have, look, my new staff are here too. There's Kiki and there's Miriam, and they're really great, and I'm so excited to be here, and so excited to be working with these 2 fine folk. I see Meg's giving big thumbs up, and that's really it. This is all we really do. You know, show things off. I'll later. I haven't talked about the dead mouse I found, but I'll be talking about that later on this morning. And stuff, so.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Let them flee while they still have a chance. Flee.
Run.
Flee while you still have a chance. And he's like, no, don't say that.
Yes, I just ran into the former minister at Milton here at 24 Farnsworth, and she said, Hank is really going to shake things up. And I thought, that's for sure. All right, who else we got here?
I think we've all introduced ourselves, except our special guest.
Have we? Okay, fabulous. Well, while we're doing staff, let me introduce the CLF staff who are sitting near me, because I'm here in this big conference room with this fancy technology. Lena, come over. Okay. Go. Hello. This is Lena Gardner. She's also here from Minneapolis with me in Boston. So you can tell.
Hi. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Nice to see you again.
And
here I am.
Lorraine Dennis, who is here in Boston all the time.
Hello.
Anyway, so they're here with me as we film today. And we're very excited to have a special guest today, Julie Taylor from the St. Louis area, community minister. Julie, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, as we just heard, my name is Julie Taylor. I'm a community minister here in St. Louis. I am affiliated with Emerson UU Chapel, which is out in Ellisville, which is part of St. Louis County. I do a lot of different types of work. One of the pieces of my community ministry is here at Eden Theological Seminary, where I am the director of the UU House of Studies, working with all the UU seminarians here at Eden. My spouse is on faculty here at Eden as an Old Testament professor. So that's how I got connected here and why we're living in St. Louis. I also am a brand new military chaplain. About 2 weeks ago tomorrow, I took my oath, and I'm a chaplain with the Air National Guard, the New York Air National Guard. So that's another piece of my community ministry, as well as being on the board and a trainer and a responder with the UU Trauma Response Ministry. So that's a number of the things I do and kind of the places that I play.
Fabulous. And as I understand it, you're here with us not officially as a military chaplain. You're here in your role as a UU minister.
Correct.
Just to be really clear about that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. So, and I think your trauma ministry experience is probably coming in pretty handy in the St. Louis area right now. We invited you because you've been involved in the organizing around Ferguson. So why don't you start off by telling us what happened last night with the clergy gathering and what you've been seeing and doing? And we're talking, as is the nation, about what's going on in Ferguson, Missouri.
All right. Well, last night specifically, and most recently in terms of clergy, there was an event, and I'm going to have to pull it up to remember the exact title because it was a very long title. Are you hearing me okay? Okay. So there was an event that was pretty quickly, not quite spontaneously, but pretty quick. Tuesday morning, an organizing group came and had put together a number of clergy, and I, just by virtue of the fact really that I'm connected at Eden, yeah, really that I'm connected at Eden and that I have been out on the streets doing work. I got invited to that meeting to be a part of putting together some of the program that happened last night. And the intention and the desire was to have clergy and faith leaders and lay people come to Clayton, which is the county seat for the prosecutor's office, for all those pieces that happen within St. Louis County, and specifically to march to the county prosecutor's office, make a visible symbol of the faith communities, and say this is not acceptable. There are pieces that need to be taken care of in terms of grand jury, in terms of the county prosecutor recusing himself actually from this. And then also there's a complaint that the NAACP filed with the county prosecutor over a year ago around racial profiling in St. Louis County that has not even been looked at. And that was another piece that the local clergy wanted to make public and to insist that be publicly started to be looked into. So probably about I don't know the numbers. I'm guessing somebody will put those out today or tomorrow. I would think at least 100, 150 clergy from so many different faith traditions showed up. We were supposed to be meeting and gathering in a grocery store parking lot. That's initially where we were meeting. Everybody's going to park, and that's where we're going to start, and then march to the prosecutor's office. And when we got there, the owner of the grocery store chain told us we would not be permitted to park in their parking lots. So earlier in the day, we're told that a permit would not be issued. We would not be permitted even to walk on the sidewalks to get to the prosecutor's office. That the organizers, when it's very generous for Meg to call me an organizer, I participated in the organizing of it. I'm not a community organizer, although I'm starting to learn about that. The people who really know how to do that went into negotiations, I think, with police about how this very peaceful march of clergy and people of faith could take place. So, and this is all within an hour of the time that we were all meeting. So moved to the local high school and then parked at the local high school and walked to the to the prosecutor's office. That was the beginning of the event. And really, faith leaders, there's several of us, couple of us, Unitarian Universalists, UCC, there were imams, there were rabbis, Pentecostals, there were Quakers, Baha'i. I mean, it was any Presbyterians, Methodists, just so many different faith traditions there. It was about 90 some odd degrees, so we were not in full vestments as the original plan was to make it very visual. It was way too hot for that. But took this walk there. So we were at the county prosecutor's office and had this letter stating what we were requesting of the county. And initially it looked like no one was going to accept it. And we were told no one would take it. And finally a police officer came forward and said he would accept the letter. And I don't know, politically for him, who knows? That may cost him politically within his department, within his career. I mean, I think that was a pretty courageous move for him to step up and decide to accept the letter, because if that hadn't happened, I'm not actually sure what would have happened next. So anyway, from there, we marched back to our cars, and then probably about 40 folks then caravanned to Ferguson and met at the Greater St. Mark's Church, and that's where we met. Greater St. Mark's Church, which is in Ferguson, and that's a really interesting. If somebody can pull up a link, or I can at some point, some of the pieces around that church has opened its doors from the beginning, 24/7, to be a respite center and a safe place for youth, adults, for anybody to come. And when the tear gas comes out, they have eye wash, they have food, they have water, they have bathrooms that people can come to, and they've kept their doors open. In the last, I think, 3 nights, they've been raided by the police and materials have been taken. They are a no weapons, no alcohol, no drugs policy. It's right on the outside, so that would not be a legitimate reason to raid this place. Evidently, they have a permit that is out of date that was discovered, and so now the city or the county, I'm not sure which municipality, is looking to enforce closing the entire place down due to a permit that has been out of date, which will close the entire location down. This has been a safe haven.
So, Julie, here's the article that I got. It's the Greater St. Mark Family Church Shelter for Ferguson protesters reportedly raided by St. Louis County Police.
Multiple times.
Wow.
So several... Go ahead.
Can I say, I can't believe that, the county, continues to make really bad decisions over and over again. I mean, clergy marching on the street, no way. Right. I mean, if that supermarket doesn't want you guys to park in the parking lot, what can you do? But we don't want you to walk down the sidewalk. We're not going to accept this letter from a bunch of clergy. I'm just.
Right. I mean, forget the legality. Just on the PR side, I mean, this is just really bad choices.
Well, maybe we have more power than we think.
Well, that's what one of the leaders with the bullhorn said last night when we got to the county prosecutor's office. Earlier in the day, you can walk right up to the door. We get there, there's barricades everywhere and a pen, and somebody said, well, we must be pretty frightening. We must be pretty frightening because look at the barricades. It's pastors, it's imams, it's rabbis, and they got to make sure that we're not going to tear the place down.
Well, don't you think if the image that we're getting is this crazy, out of control, looters, wild, need to be controlled, and to see 1,000 visible clergy people goes against that image. I mean, what I had heard, I joined an interfaith clergy call and listened, and I heard that the presence of people in vestments and collars calmed everybody down, that it was an immediate calming effect. Like the police, everybody calmed down. Did you experience that?
Well, one thing that I would say, I wish there had. I know they were hoping to get 1,000 people. There weren't 1,000 people. There was probably 150 maybe. It was, and part of that's a quick turnaround. This was organized on Tuesday morning, and the call was for Wednesday night.
Very quick. And it sounds like some bishops of some of the historically black denominations are there. At least that's what I was hearing on this call, that some of the bishops have shown up, and that's a huge support to the community. Did you meet some of those folks? Was there speaking by religious people?
There was not a large amount of speaking. There were really the way this was, the idea for this was there would be a couple of short not even speeches, but statements by clergy, and also then there were two young adults who spoke as well from the community, two women who spoke from the community that were, it was so moving about their presence and why they're there. One was a mother. She has 6 kids, and she said, we need to be safe. We need to be safe in our homes from everyone. Both sides need to be toning things down because our kids are not safe. Our kids are not safe. It was incredibly moving.
Sorry to interrupt you really quick. I just wanted to remind the audience that you can ask us questions through the Google's Q&A app if you're watching us live right now. You can also use hashtag the VUU to be able to ask questions, or ask questions on Facebook about what's going on in Ferguson. We'll answer them live on air as we get them.
Aisha, looked like you're about to speak.
Well, I wanted to ask Julie if there is a coordination of effort among the UU churches in the area.
There is. We actually, the local churches are pretty close. We tend to collaborate on things on a really regular basis, particularly, and actually there's 4 area churches. And all 4 area churches' social justice groups actually collaborate regularly on social justice projects, which is great. And so we're talking about it. We're not necessarily, at this point at least, there's not one big event that the UUs are doing specifically at this point. It may coalesce into that. So today, I'll give you an example of one of the things that clergy are doing. So our local ministers cluster, which for those of you that don't know that lingo, in areas, ministers gather often, sometimes once a month, sometimes quarterly. In our area, it's called BUMS, B-U-U-M-S, and I think it's the Bi-State UU Ministers Group. So the BUMS are meeting. There's about 12, 15 of us, because St. Louis is the closest area for some that drive 2-3 hours from different directions to get here. And today at 11 o'clock local time is actually our monthly meeting. Instead of having a meeting, the decision was made to go into the community, go into Ferguson, and provide service in the community. So our BUMS meeting is happening. I was able to arrange, there's a call for pastoral care right on site, and so our folks are going to do pastoral care as a group of UU ministers from the surrounding areas. And what that pastoral care looks like is talking with people, but it's talking with people while helping them box up food and diapers and getting that to take back to their homes. It's helping unload cases of water. So it's really active pastoral care, and that's where you get conversations happening, and that's going to be going on in 40 minutes.
Julie, I was wondering, in the realm of pastoral care and your trauma response experience, how would you describe, kind of the mother that you mentioned who's worried for her kids? What level of trauma? I mean, you've been in a lot of different places where trauma is live. How would you describe, the experience and the residual trauma of people that you're talking to?
Well, there's 2 pieces to this. There's certainly the acute experience that's happening right now. Well, now at this many days in, is also not immediate, so it's starting to be exhausted, and folks are really tired, really tired. So that piece, 12 or so days in, is certainly a part of it, although we're still in the acute stage. So there's still disbelief, anger, fear, fear for safety, fear for our community, fear for what happens next. That's part of it. Then there's an underlying regular difficulty going on with unequal policing that happens, and not just policing, but services and respect and all those. So there's multiple layers going on here. There's multiple layers. At the same time, yesterday I did 3 hours. I did a 3-hour shift right at the Canfield Apartments with doing the pastoral care piece, and so talking to a lot of folks. And I've been in that neighborhood other days. And one of the things that's remarkable is the resilience and the caring that this community has for one another, that is so strong, and that will help them as they navigate the next period of whatever's going to come next, which is unclear at this point.
Yeah. Or the kids aren't in school, right? They're
still not in school.
When they may be back in school?
I have heard that school's going to be out through the rest of this week. I don't know what the plan is for next week. I haven't heard what the plan is for next week. I don't know if it's been publicized yet.
Is your sense that people want the whole thing over at this point, or is there a strong sense that they want to continue an active protest, protest scene, an active ongoing protest until McCullough's out or an indictment or something like that? So there is, like, they're tired, but they're not ready to kind of go back to normal life?
It depends on who you ask.
Okay, I figured that.
Because St. Louis County is big, and there are folks from other parts of this county and other parts of even close in the little municipalities around. I'm not going to say that they're only the white folks that are there, but I certainly I've heard from white folks, this needs to be done. We need the spotlight off. We want all the cameras over. We want this done. This should be taken care of. Make this go away.
Mm-hmm.
And I've certainly heard from community members, we want this done because we want to have some resolution. We want to have an answer. We want to have a direct path. People want an indictment. People want to see an arrest. So it really depends on who you talk to. It depends on who you talk to about how people want this to be done. I know that there's a lot of people that want, some want the cameras to go away, some want the cameras to stay.
Mm-hmm.
I know that certainly local people want the overwhelming police presence to lighten up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Julie, it's remarkable to me how badly this has been handled by the police. So do you get a sense on the ground that the police are recognizing they have to de-escalate first? Or is it just now, it feels like a standoff and the police aren't, it almost feels like Gaza. It's the Israelis and the Palestinians almost. Why is there such a, why is a stupid question, but do you get a sense that there's a recognition from those with the weapons that they need to stand down first?
Well, I'll tell you, I've been an EMT. Now I'm a military chaplain. One thing that needs to be clear is that generally the people that are, the police officers, the law enforcement officers that are there on the ground, they are following an order that they have been given, a direct order and a job that they've been given. They are not given the choice to be there or not be there. So one thing to be really clear, and I think we should be really clear about, is that those decisions are being made much higher up. And so even if the folks that are there, in uniform wanted to not be there, they don't get that. They don't get to choose.
Right.
So I think that needs to be really clear for everybody. This is not a two-sided issue. And I have no idea if the folks that are in charge have figured out that de-escalating a bit actually helps the folks that are on the ground. I know I have witnessed the difference when law enforcement is lower key, the people that are out in the streets are lower key. I have seen that happen.
We saw that so dramatically when the tanks and the riot gear left. That and the head of the highway department came. Everything it made it to my eyes, so apparent where the escalation was coming from.
Well, and the next night, that was not the case.
Right.
And it got
That's
worse
right.
again.
That's right.
Now, last night, and it would be interesting to see, it'll be interesting to see what happens tonight. Last night, and I don't know if it's because there was a very publicized clergy walk to the prosecutor's office that then was going to result in a very public clergy being on site. So the part 2 of last night, part 1 was clergy at prosecutor's office. Part 2 was going to the site and in stoles, in collars, in prayer shawls, actually protesting, which is not something, I have not protested at night. I've been there for a very different reason. I have not been part of the lines protesting, but I did that last night. I don't know if that's the reason, but last night there were no tanks, there was no riot gear, there were no masks. The police presence also seemed like there were fewer by a significant amount, and they were just in regular gear. And the whole night was a lot calmer. Now tonight, when there's not going to be a giant visible clergy presence as part of a protest, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I'm curious, you know, a lot of the media now is about outside agitators versus local people. How do you see that when you're there? What's it look like with who's actually there? Do you have any sense? Have you talked to people who are coming from far away?
Yes, and I think that's really legitimate that that's happening. I think it was Saturday night, 7 people were arrested. None of them were local.
Wow.
That's really important. None of them were local. Doesn't mean that there aren't local folks being arrested, but on that night, every single one of them was from out of the area. I'll say this too, because I know that there are UUs, some of them young people, some of them may not be, but I know I've met at least one young person that came. This was this a couple nights ago, doesn't matter when, who I was wearing my Standing on the Side of Love shirt. So there have been a couple of nights that I've gone out late with other clergy to work on actively de-escalating the energy as things are heating up at night. And so literally going out, sometimes it's having a arm in arm, trying to walk the protesters away from the police. So we're literally, our bodies are in between the tanks and the automatic weapons and the protesters. Sometimes it's, when things really heat up and people are running out in the street to want to defy the fact that now you can't go in the street. You used to be able to go in the street, now you can't go in the street. Well, I'm going in the street, trying to walk people back in, trying to talk folks down. Don't throw that bottle of water. Don't throw that bottle of water. Please don't throw that bottle of water. So I had my Standing on the Side of Love shirt with my collar one night doing that, and a kid walked up to me and said, hey, I'm one of you. I'm a UU, and he's from a very long ways away, and came. And I said, well, what are you here for? And are you going to take care of yourself? And, well, I'm here because we need to be here, and I can't believe there aren't more UUs out here protesting this, and we need to be, we need to be in the streets, and we need to be this and that. Well, my understanding is, I could be wrong, so this is the part where, don't quote me 100%, but I was told by a person, this person was arrested later that night. Here's the problem with outside folks meaning well, wanting to get a voice out. If you come into this community and you get arrested, those arrest numbers go up, which means the police force is going to stay larger longer, which means if you come from outside and to get arrested on site on West Florissant in Ferguson, the more people that get arrested, the more reason there is for those tanks to stay out and for the police force to stay high. If you want to protest, I think there's going to be a place for organized civil disobedience. And it may not be on site because it puts the community in danger right now. It puts the community in danger. So that's what I would say about, we UUs have a history of civil disobedience, and it is good, it is important. But please take into consideration, are you putting local people in danger when you do that?
Yeah, it's so complicated, isn't it? Tom, are you leaning forward to speak? Or just thinking?
I'm just thinking, because, am I muted?
No, we can hear you.
I'm just thinking, because I was listening to Philip Agnew. You know Philip Agnew from Dream Defenders. I saw him, he was interviewed last night, and he was questioning the role of a lot of clergy, which he said basically is trying to settle everything out. It's like order and peace as opposed to justice, and he wonders about where our priorities as clergy are. Do we want this to just all settle down and go back to normal, in which case it's all contained? Like, well, there's people being arrested on the mall around immigration, and it doesn't really move this process forward because it's so orderly and so contained, and so people line up and they go in and they get arrested and then they're out in the middle of the afternoon. Something's going on here in Ferguson, which is a crisis, and it's making people. It's pushing the process forward. It's pushing the process forward. There's been more change in the last. There's like many more people who are taken toward the community than after the Trayvon Martin case. The number of white people who are sympathetic to the community as opposed to the police has gone. I don't know what my number is at this point because I just
not good. It's
gotten better. It's gotten better.
Better than
it's gone
better
from
than
60,
terrible.
It's gone from 60% being more sympathetic to the police to being 47% more sympathetic to the police. Just since the Trayvon Martin thing, because this issue is making people think, and so there's something about the ongoing nature of the crisis that's disruptive and makes people think. And
I also think, Tom, too, that the same way that in the last 15 years people have started to question larger institutions, whether it's the church after the church, all the misconduct stuff that came out of that, and have started people questioning of the government and of schools and all these other things. And I wonder if this isn't the point where people all of a sudden are looking at the institution of the police and its militarization and its role in creating problems. I mean, this whole situation is caused by the police in Ferguson, and then their over response, and then the over response of the St. Louis county. And I just wonder, like, is this a time when people finally are taking a look at the larger institution of the police and kind of going, hey, wait a minute, so.
Yeah.
Joanna.
Yeah, I see that Sarah Napoli has the same question that I do, which is, Julie, can you, for those of us who are miles and miles away, is there something that we can do? Is it, whether it's writing letters or asking our local media for more information, or, what can we do to support the people in the area and also to voice our outrage?
Well, I think a lot of things are emerging and a lot of things are changing. So I think the call for what people can do is probably going to be changing also. Mm-hmm. So before I answer that kind of directly, one website that I would direct people to if they kind of want to, keep track of what is happening faith communities-wise, a website called prayingwithourfeet.org. All one word, prayingwithourfeet.org. And the reason I direct folks to that, it's not an organization. It's actually the St. Louis Council of Clergy, or St. Louis Clergy Coalition, really fast last week put that website up. So it's a clearinghouse of information about things happening that are probably going to be important or interesting to faith communities. One of the
Is that also a hashtag on Twitter, or?
Not at this. No, it's not right now. It's not. I think it may be too. Well, it's a phrase that's been around for a long time. Yeah. It's not theirs. So But that's, you know, if, they do have a tab. It's not real populated yet, but there is a tab for, I think, for if you're out of town or for those far away, something like that. So you can keep checking. It's changing on sometimes an hourly basis. There's new things added to it, so that would be a good place to also to look. So a couple of things about what can you do in your area if you can't come here. Or maybe you realize that maybe you think maybe it's not the best idea for right now to come here. That's certainly a legitimate choice too. So look at what's happening in your own communities. I got a call from someone that I know from back in New York. We lived in New York City I was in New York City for 25 years. And somebody that's not a UU, but a pretty well-known person in New York, person of faith in New York, wants to come to St. Louis and be able to meet with leaders and bring their, you know, voice to what's happening in St. Louis. And I said, well, that's, you know, hey, listen, if you're coming, you're coming. But I do have one question. I said, have you been to Staten Island yet?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Have you been to Staten Island, where Eric Garner was killed a little over 3 weeks ago? It's a half-hour train ride from where your office is. And there was silence on the other end of the phone. I said, well, that silence is pretty much all I need to know. And so one of the things I would say is look what's happening in your own community about profiling, about systematic abuses. This is not
Yes.
an anti-police movement.
Right.
It's an anti-abuse of power movement.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, Minneapolis, where the statistics are horrific, the Urban League had one of those gatherings last week when lots of cities did. And I've been looking for weeks, because every time I read the paper, I flip out about what I see in Minneapolis. Long before Ferguson, I've been unable to find. I've Googled, I've looked. And so we went, and there are people who said, thank God, there are 500 people here. We're here every week. And I'm like, who are you telling that you're there every week? But now, hundreds of people are getting involved. And Minneapolis is horrific. It's horrific. And I mean, it's really statistically, it's there with Staten Island. I mean, it's really bad. And I think if you get to know what's happening where you are, it's so not about Ferguson. I mean, and it's not about the South. And I hope that really some good community efforts will be made. And in Minneapolis, that's where I'm putting my energy, at home.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, so we have a question from the audience about a Google Doc that went out with resources. I came across this as well. I'm going to put it up on the screen share here. And I can, if we want, list it at facebook.com/CLFUU if people want to take a look at this document that says solidarity, ways to support, the different legal sources that you can be able to give the money to. If you want to come, here are the people they actually need: medics, attorneys, photographers, organizers of color, theater, civil disobedience, spiritual healers, counselors, tech folks. And if you want to build the movement locally where you are, they have some things, and local organizers can fill out this link. So this is a Google Doc that's been going around that is coming, that I can't verify this because I'm not in Ferguson, but that has been reported as coming from the leaders themselves in Ferguson.
Julie, how would you characterize the leadership in Ferguson? Oh,
one of the
sorry.
things that's
You're trying to talk and you're muted, Julie. What'd you say? Okay. Tom, go.
One of the things that's breaking out in this thing is that for really the first, well, let's say since Trayvon Martin and so on, you're seeing a crossover of concern about this issue from communities of color into actual white communities. I mean, there's white activists who are getting involved that were not involved before and are concerned about it now. And so that gives a role to the predominantly white Unitarian Universalist movement, because we have people that we could be amplifying this message to and getting them involved in this struggle, where that's often seemed like somebody else's thing before. Well, you know, now we're realizing and more vividly that it's everybody's thing, and So this is, a place that we can be really organizing. And, it's like, as you're saying, if there's 500 people in Minneapolis meeting about it, you could add another 50, with Meg Riley's incredible organizing skills, into that, is out to communities that aren't involved in it now. I mean, I think we have a particular role as Unitarian Universalist faith leaders, because we're opinion leaders in certain segments of the white communities, and we should exercise that power.
And as I'm sure everybody here would know, and I'm not always so articulate, or maybe I shouldn't say articulate, I'm not always so delicate in the way I put things. So as those of us that are white Unitarian Universalist faith leaders, we should be leaders in our community. We shouldn't go into other communities and think that we deserve to be leaders in their communities for this.
Amen. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
And that is often, I mean, I've seen it. I've seen, not necessarily with UUs, but I mean, I've certainly seen that tendency even here. I was in New York. I was in New York. I'm a World Trade Center responder and was a chaplain on site for that. And some of the work and things happening there in different places where, here we come, and we're going to take care of it, and let's jump right into, let's have dialogue about anti-racism now, which is, certainly an important thing to have dialogue right now. But you know what? The dialogue about anti-racism, at least here right now, is a little soon. It's a little early. We actually have important work on the ground that needs to be done, and if UUs only talk about anti-racism and we go and have more discussion about anti-racism, that's part of it. Do not get me wrong. We have to have those conversations. But if that's where it stays, then I question our legitimacy in the actual work that we're doing, and to be able to call ourselves leaders with it, in anti-racism around this nation, certainly. And this is why I will not be running for any office anywhere, including probably within our denomination. But
and I think it's also important for us not to use not wanting to come in and take other people's voice away. Also, not use that as an excuse as not to get involved. Like, well, I want to support those folks, so I'll just stay home. So I think it's important for us to use the muscle that we have, in important ways at home, but maybe also in Ferguson too. Let's not, I don't want to say that that people certainly people should be working in their home, in their home communities, but also let's not forget that there's like this huge mess going on right now.
If there is a call, if there is a request, if our coming would be of use, I think that's the critical question.
One thing that has been very interesting to me, watching this on Facebook, is seeing it seems like this is getting people to have conversations with their own little, within their own little world in a very good way. People are having, because they're posting things on Facebook, then Great Aunt Edna is weighing in, and I've seen a lot of articles come through that are basically saying, how do you have that conversation with Aunt Edna about race? What do you do when you keep seeing really hateful things from someone that you were friends with? And I find that interesting that that Facebook is kind of become, we're taking this big story and people are taking this into their own lives and into their own relationships, and I think really struggling with it on the relationship side in terms of, okay, where do I find common ground, and on the other side, at what point do I say this is not a friendship that I'm willing to have anymore?
That is, I think that's so important. I am not hearing flat out hateful, but what I'm getting over and over from a lot of white people on Facebook is, people, let's just wait for the experts to figure it out and calm down. In this real calm, I'm calm, you're crazy kind of way. And it's so easy to want to force people to have a different opinion than that, And I mean, what I've been sitting with is, how do you? And I think this is what I'm thinking right now, part of what's going on is that white people are like, a lot of white people, reality is a little jarred here. Like, wait a minute, maybe I actually don't know everything, which white people are conditioned to supposed to know everything, and often go through a whole life believing, like not even believing that they're have a race, you know. So all of a sudden there's like, wait a minute, who am I in this? And I think that's a beautiful moment for learning. But what I see a lot is, you're an idiot racist, you know. And so it's like, how do you take that not knowing and turn it from let's wait for the experts to turn it to, yeah, we don't know everything as white people, and how do we actually learn what we don't know? Like, to me, there's this turning of that energy that's a really profound transformational moment that I'm not yet quite sure how to have it well. I mean, Joanna, if you've seen anything on that, I'd be really interested, because, you know, I get emotionally upset when I feel like what people are saying is, we can't believe bystanders because they're black. So let's wait for the white authorities to figure it out and tell us.
Well, I think that's one of the big questions that people are struggling with, especially white people, which is, who are the experts, right? You know, and okay, now we're getting the news reports, and now we have video footage, because, you know, if there's anything that we won't trust an eyewitness, but we'll trust the video footage, even if it's grainy, even if we really don't know what's happening there. Even if it was shot 2 days before and 3 days before, and not being told that that's when it was and that's when it's from, and it's not even from the same area. Sorry to interrupt. Right. No, absolutely. You know, and especially if we have a white commentator who will explain to us what is actually happening there. You know, it is so much a part of our culture to give that and that person authority. And I'm hopeful that there are people who are now looking at this and going, oh, maybe that isn't actually the authority. Maybe we should actually believe people when they say this is what our experience is. But I'm with you, Meg. I wish I could find the magic thing that that people could read or could see, where they would have that aha moment of simply stopping to question, wait, maybe the people that I've considered to be the authorities aren't actually the authorities.
Well, one of the things I remember is that I've never changed my mind about anything in a direct conversation with someone when challenged. I always change my mind 2 hours later, after when I think about what I've heard. You know, if I'm like directly in that thing, it's like, well, no, then all my defenses are up and all my ego's at work. But then, you know, I'll walk away going, you know, they were right. Right? Or I wouldn't even say they were right, but I'll say, well, you know, I can deal with that, you know. So one of the questions to ask people to go is, okay, if you're going to wait for the experts, what are you going to do if the experts tell you that, in fact, injustice was done? What are you going to do then? Or do you want to just wait? You just don't want to do anything. You just don't want to deal with it now. You just want to wait, put it off, put it off, put it off.
So we have a question from the audience, sorry, Tom, about the Black Lives Matters freedom rides that are being scheduled for Labor Day weekend. Reverend Taylor, do you have more information about that, or have you heard organizing from on the ground about it?
You're muted.
Sorry. Sorry. No, I actually don't. No, I'm just seeing them now. Listen, again, I'm one of the just people on the ground. I am not in charge of anything. I am not at the heart of what's happening anywhere except within the UU cluster group here. So with bums, I got a pretty good, you know, I got a pretty good, you know, pulse of the bums here. But beyond that,
for those who weren't here, that is an acronym.
That is an acronym. That's here. The bums is our local UU ministers cluster here. That's what we're called. So, you know.
Time to change the name.
I don't know. we've been working on culture change within the group for a long time. It's going to take a while. We're at least not meeting at bars anymore, so I think we're pretty good. It may take a while longer for the name to change. So I would say if you're interested in looking at that, again, just see if that's coming from local. See if that seems to be coming from local. If it's only coming from outside, there is, you know, to get back to what Hank was saying, there is absolute important need for people to be here, but I think be here responsibly, and that's really important. And also speaking to the idea that somebody said earlier, a concern that someone had made about clergy just trying to keep things calm and settle down. I would push back on that a little bit, in that, having been somebody on the ground there for that, what the clergy are trying to do, the intention is not to calm people down so that they're orderly. It's do your yelling, but please just stand on the sidewalk so you get home tonight. Keep yelling, keep showing up out here, but when they tell you if you don't move, they are going to arrest you, just go so that you can get home tonight, because we don't know what's going to happen to you once you go. You know, if it's a question of, people are actually physically being hit with tear gas canisters. It's one thing to get the face full of it, which sucks, let me just say. Theologically, just every way, it's a bad thing. But to be hit with a canister too, I mean, folks are getting actually aimed at. So when the clergy that I have seen that are out, and let me tell you, multi-faith, there are the men from Nation of Islam that are out there are doing amazing work. They are saving people's lives. I know it because I've seen the kind of work that they're doing. Pentecostal preachers, UCC, Methodists, Baptists, you know, UUs. There are folks that are out there, and the intention is not to tell people they can't protest or they shouldn't be loud. It's do it in a way so at least you can go home to your families tonight.
Julie, did you know that Christian minister who got shot with the rubber bullet? Who was?
I don't.
That was a heartbreaker. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just jump in for a second? I think there's multi-level things we're touching on, and one of them for me that stands out is, so we have, 1,000-member congregations, and I just fantasize, what would it look like if we made a concerted effort over the next 2 or 3 years to partner with local organizations for voter registration of those who are underrepresented, because it's about institutional racism. It's about a Congress that is fighting the first black president every single reform he's trying to make, and people have been very hard on him, but this is an institutional problem that's playing out locally. And so I so admire and respect you, Julie, and Julie's a friend of mine, and I'm so just inspired by you and awe of you, so I want to thank you.
And that leads me to say that Patrice Curtis, one of our usual hosts, isn't here today. Patrice would be thrilled to hear what Aisha just said, because part of Patrice's new job is organizing voter registration work at All Souls Church in Washington, D.C. And so all of these issues are connected, absolutely. And some of the stuff about how elections happen in Ferguson has been really interesting to read. And I use the word interesting as Minnesotans do, like, oh, that's interesting. In other words, Julie, do you see, I've heard that there are calls for a number of people to step down, the mayor, the sheriff, different people. Do you see any of that going anywhere? How does that mayor get elected? I mean, is there going to be a recall?
I don't know, and it's still pretty early. It's still pretty early, and who knows? You know what? There's always, listen, I'm a universalist, big time universalist, and I'm a Unitarian too. And so I think there's time for redemption for these folks. I think there's time for them maybe to have that moment where, like Tom was just saying, where they're not being confronted, where they have a time to breathe, and maybe a different choice can be made. And those kinds of things could change the need for that, potentially, or change the call for that, potentially, maybe. Which also makes me want to say, again, there's not two sides to this. There are hundreds of sides to what's going on here and every place. If this turns into, and I've seen it happen already in UU congregations, where, listen, whether people recognize it or not, or believe it or not, we have law enforcement, we have military, we have EMS, we have firefighters. We have these people, we have Republicans in and conservatives in our congregations who do not agree with everything that we're doing. I have people in the congregation that I serve who do not agree with me being out there. And I've had conversations with them. And one of the questions is, so if we're going to pray for the family of Mike Brown and the protesters, what about the family of the officer? Are we praying for the chief of police who's being called to resign? And I would challenge that for folks. If we are going to believe in the inherent worth and dignity and uphold the inherent worth and dignity of all people, how do we pray for that reconciliation? How do we pray within ourselves to say, you have dignity, and what we want here is justice, equity, and compassion in all human relations, which also means that we need to find a way to have justice, equity, and compassion in our relationship with people we don't agree with and maybe even hate. So I want to make a bigger call for that we pay attention to that as Unitarian Universalists in all that we do. And by doing that, it doesn't mean that you're choosing to endorse what's happening on the other side or one of the many other sides of this. It's not even a side. These are like holograms now, right? They're three-dimensional and they're funky and they move. How do we do that? How do we say, I believe that you do not deserve to be persecuted, perhaps prosecuted, but not persecuted. And that's a hard distinction to make. That's a really hard distinction to make, and that does take time. I don't know how to stress that enough. I think that's so important. I think that's so important that we take a step and choose to be thoughtful about this. If you are a faith leader, if you are a layperson leading a fellowship, and you are having prayers this Sunday coming up for what's happening in Ferguson, pray for all sides. Pray for the people, because you know what? There are folks that stand in harm's way every day on all sides. Some of those folks that are doing voter registration are standing in harm's way. Some of those folks that are carrying a sidearm, they are standing in harm's way or carrying a bag full of medical equipment, right? Pray for all who are standing in harm's way, and the protesters out on West Florissant are standing in harm's way. So that's a plea.
Amen. 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 We are coming to the end of our hour, so speaking of many sides, I would like to invite people to say anything you haven't gotten to say as we begin to close this session. And it gets very quiet.
Well, what I thought of, Julie, when you were talking is Dr. Martin Luther King charging people to, he said, Jesus told us to love our enemies. He didn't say we had to like them. So I really appreciate what you're saying about praying for both sides. I really thank you.
Yeah, I've been thinking about all the research of, the trauma of people who kill someone and really wondering how that is. I mean, for police officers, for soldiers, for all kinds of people who have killed someone, and to have all of this around that, it's sort of like the tragedy for Mike Brown's family. Like, how can they even get to the grief when it won't stop becoming new grief, And so, yeah, the layers of trauma here are astounding. And I actually am praying for many, many people, about this.
Mm-hmm. Right, and definitely, as someone pointed out earlier, the officers who are out there and they don't get to make the choices, they are following a direction. I absolutely trust that the majority of them want to protect their community. The issue is that there may be very different opinions about how one does that.
I think what Ferguson is outlining for everybody is the systemic part, where it's like the individual police officers and the individuals in the community are part of a systemic issue that we can really pray for and is man-made. So there's a lot of hope for it to change.
I think we have to, I have a lot of problem with the. I have a lot of problem with the pray for everybody all the time, because I think that the world is I think you make a decision, And not to decide is to decide. And I want us to think about that, because are we lifting ourselves above it all with the kind of benign universalism that I just worry about that. But anyway, this is a good time for everybody to learn, rethink, and teach. And I think as Unitarian Universalist faith leaders, we have to remember, who is it that looks to us for some kind of guidance? And as a faith leader, there are people who look to you for guidance. And what is the message you want to be giving them? What is the message you want to be giving them?
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Well, Hank, you got the final word?
No.
Okay.
What Tom said.
All right. Thank you so much, Julie, for being here. Thank you for your work. Keep us posted.
Yeah, thank you.
Keep us knowing how we can be of support wherever we are. Thank you for those of you who watched and who are engaged in this where you are, and we'll see you next week. Next week we have, are we confirmed, Joanna?
Yes, we have the Reverends Deanna Vandiver and Jim Vanderweel and Paul Beadle, all of the ministers who were part of the New Orleans, and Jim and Deanna were both there when the invasion occurred, and so they're going to be talking about that and about the aftermath.
By invasion, just since we're talking about a lot of different things right now, there were some very hateful protesters who came in and disrupted a worship service in New Orleans. We'll be talking about that next week. Aisha Hauser will be back with us. You did not embarrass your family. Congratulations.
Yeah, not yet. You have 30 seconds. Quick, 30 seconds.
There's still time.
There's still time today.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you. Bye.